nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. Fun time had by all. I'm Petey Rave, and here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got Brett.
In the words of the art that I have not shared here, meowdy partner.
Mm-hmm. We've got Drew.
Hey, folks.
And of course, we got in our rotating fourth chair, we've got Curly.
Orange, glad you invited me with my Zevia.
Ain't no sugar. No, that can's full of poop.
Orange poop.
Orange.
Or it induces you to do the poop.
Yes.
It's the only soda that actually isn't colored. It just comes out white. I wanted to see inside the can.
We all saw inside the can, and we saw you see inside the can for a second.
Check. Delicious.
Yes. We're here to talk about music rather than soda. We have a separate podcast for in the
Mountain
future for
Zevia.
soda.
I'm more of a Dr. Zevia kind of fan.
Yeah,
I've got that too.
Yeah. We'll have soda breakers afterwards. But we're here to talk about an album, and the provider of the album this week is, of course, last but not least, for his turn finally, Curly. Curly, what have you got for us this week?
I brought the little album that could, the David Bowie that no one but, I guess, people who dig into David Bowie or have weird connections to it like me do, but the David Bowie Hours album. A couple of things reminded me of this album, and it actually was the reason why I really actually wanted to be in Record Breakers. I just kind of wanted to save this for a discussion with you guys, because I immediately thought of you guys when I was reminded of it. This came out in like 1999. Man, that seems like a long time ago. And then I looked up on Wikipedia that Bowie was like 52 when he did this.
I just watched a music video from this, and I was like, oh, it's still old.
Yeah, he was like, so he was going through a lot of turn of the century stuff and also midlife stuff, I think. And I'll save a lot of it. Well, I'm going to save a lot of it for like the actual show and stuff, but this is basically an album he made. It's a step away kind of from a lot of the more deeply insane, you could dig for years and not really uncover all the nuggets because of certain reasons. This movie it's
a multimedia property.
Yes.
This album was commissioned from the only David Cage for a video game called Omicron Nomad Soul. It's one of those weird things. I have a lot of connections.
No, I looked this up. I did not get Beyond Human though. Yeah. I did not. Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. David Cage, who went on to do Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls and Detroit Become Human. This was his first game in 1999. It was on the Dreamcast and PC.
The French guy who has a lot of important and very nuanced things to say about racism in America.
I didn't realize until I started reading a little bit more of that, because I saved a lot of my own research because I wanted to kind of do it right before the show and then actually talk about it on the show and everything. But then I got to the oof David Cage section of the Wikipedia article, and I was like, oh, did I step in this one? So we'll ignore most of his stuff. But the game was fun.
That's fine. I liked Heavy Rain. It was. And I heard Indigo Prophecy was good.
Yeah.
Record Breakers has had Clancy Brown on the episode before in his role as the Kurgan in the Queen soundtrack that Jaime brought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
The Kurgan. Anyways, this was an album that came out. It was swept pretty much under the rug as far as I could tell. The two things that brought it up for me was, one, they named a COVID variant after the game, and then that reminded me of the album, which that was fun. Well, they didn't name it after the game, but And then two, there was recently a 75 years of David Bowie thing on Sirius XM, and they had a bunch of guests come in, and one of them brought up like, hey, y'all don't know this album, but check out the couple tracks that I brought from Hours. And I was like, I know this. Yay. So it reminded me of it, and I wanted to listen to it. The only thing I will say as an intro to it is I loved this as a kid. I was, fucking 15 when this came out.
Where does a 15-year-old get a David? But I need some background. Put me
video game entryway. I didn't come from the music world. I came from the video game world, and I said, "Oh, there's that guy from Labyrinth in this game I'm playing."
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
David Bowie wasn't a star
guy
to me.
That was
at
hanging
this
out with
time.
Trent Reznor, not that guy who.
Yeah. I didn't know much about music. I was just enjoying a video game, and I was like, that guy looks like Jareth.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the strangest ways to get into Bowie.
Yeah.
Curly finding Labyrinth as a young teenager makes a lot of sense, though.
Mm-hmm.
But finding Labyrinth and connecting a video game that came out 15 years later is also.
Labyrinth was a staple in my household. Okay, we watched that shit constantly.
Cod pieces.
But yes. Let's talk about expectations. Brett, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
I remember the time that Parliament called him David Bowie, and that made me laugh. I've listened to very little David Bowie in my life. I've not really gone out of my way to be like, oh, David Bowie. That's the brand of weird I'm going to go for today.
That's the guy that can float in the water out in the beaches.
That's right. Sometimes he has a bell or a beacon on him. Yeah, David Bowie. Yeah, you don't want a doobie in your funk. I mean, George Clinton told us. But I respect David Bowie's work that I've absorbed through singles. I'm down for art stuff, as I've demonstrated around here, and I'm here for things that are done that are weird. But like when I came into this and I saw what era it was from, I was like, was this the time when he was like hanging out with electronic musicians, or was this after that? And I think this was after that.
Slightly
after, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, the last time I listened to a Bowie album from front to back was Black Star, which is known as being like sort of his last before his death, right? Came out, I believe, like 2 or 3 days before he passed. And he wrote it and did it like kind of knowing he was not long for this earth. So I was really excited to have something that was more like in the 90s and maybe something that like he was dealing with like his own mortality in Black Star. So I was like, oh, hey, we're going to get Bowie not dealing with his mortality, maybe.
Let me tell you about musicians.
Drink my tea saying this knowingly.
Yes. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect from this Bowie.
Tell me your Bowie story, Petey. Where's Bowie in your life?
Karaoke.
Show me on the doll where Bowie entered your life.
Yeah,
that's
mostly
right.
Just people singing in karaoke and like the old classics. Like hearing whenever I would get around to hearing the original of the Nirvana cover, like
the fame,
and things like
the
that.
The guy that wrote the song that Nirvana covered,
David
Bowie, on his grave it says that.
Yes, and probably just stumbling upon the singles, probably in this era before after, watching on MTV and things like that. That's probably about it. But I didn't But I was familiar with older Bowie just from singles and things like that. But this is an album and era that I wasn't familiar with, so I wasn't sure what to expect.
You weren't clicking download on this bad boy?
I don't think so. I don't remember what I was downloading, but God, I was downloading like entire discographies of random other people. I was probably listening to Edema at the time also, or like.
I will bring up what I was listening to at the time. I remember this era very particularly.
I got this album off Napster. I won't lie about that. I was 15. Okay.
Me and my old ex-best friend listening to Limp Bizkit.
Edema is a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, that's
I
think I was looking it up randomly once recently, and I think somebody there's a TikToker that I that stumbles upon my For You page that mentioned it and actually did a cover of the song.
Giving in the one song.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, wow, that's a random song to like remember and decide to do a cover of. Okay. But yeah, that was like,
oh no, we're doing Record Breakers, the side jog, the
Yes.
Guy Dan over here.
we're the talking about forgotten and forgettable bands from the late 90s.
We're setting the stage about how exactly we're old.
Yes.
Gonna go listen to From Autumn to Ashes after this.
Yes. God. I guess at the stage, my first album was, like I mentioned before, Very Necessary by Salt and Pepper when it was out on cassette tape.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't know quite what to expect from this era of Bowie. Yeah, let's
way to tie it back around.
Neither did the world. Neither did the world.
No, I don't think I still know what to do with this album.
Yeah, me neither.
That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Let's like 5 times. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, let's dig in.
Carly, how would you describe this album musically?
So I want to kind of keep it in regards to the dichotomy between like my opinions of it when I was a 15-year-old impressionable young kid who didn't know what David Bowie is even about, really, and then kind of my expectations of him nowadays. But like musically, as a kid, man, I love this, but I seeing what it is now, and especially during the time periods that it's sandwiched in between. Like something you mentioned earlier, his electronic crazy era and stuff, and some of the like. I think this was right after like his Earthling tour, where it was just let's do a bunch of recordings in the studio and then spend 2 more years just warbling it and doing loops and shit and throwing everything we can at it and making it nuts. And I think this one got criticized a lot because again, no one even because apparently I'm the biggest Bowie fan here when I'm not even that crazy about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is kind of fun. But like even between like Bowie fans, like people don't know this album and it just got swept under the rug. And then reading about it, I see all the, it got a bunch of criticism for it. Like a couple of the tracks got well praised, but I think as an album entirely, for me, I to explain it, I think is you can't separate it from how it was commissioned for the video game that it was for. And I don't know how much of it is like, because I do think David Bowie is a genius in general. But I also know that he's an entertainer and he's got a persona to keep up. So like the way that he talks about it is like we were trying to go back to a more simple, like since the game has a band in it that are protesters and they're like grassroots protesters, and he wanted it to be more singer-songwriter kind of stuff instead of just being like an overly produced like studio album from a mega star kind of thing. And so he wrote it in a way that is more traditional, just guitar lyrics and then Bowie shit on the top of it. So it's a lot more accessible than a lot of Bowie stuff. And I still think there's enough complexities in there to be some genuine fucking great songs that are in here that I like a lot. I think everyone should listen to. But I'm also super biased. So
Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, it ain't Dancing in the Street, which I also should say is the dance that him and that's pretty fantastic. No, this album, it's this song is or this album. Boy, I didn't know that they were using this kind of MIDI flute and strings at this point in time. This is like some like PS1 JRPG like string MIDI. It's a thing. So doing my research, I read that I had to really push my glasses up on my nose and do the biggest because this is credited as being the first all digital download release by a major label musician, which is incorrect. Because
Wikipedia could be wrong.
They Might Be Giants released, the Grammy Award-winning
major
musicians. They Might Be Giants released Long Tall Weekend like 2 months before this. And I know where I was when my brother brought the iOmega zip disc from Purdue University. He was like, I got the new They Might Be Giants album. It's download only. Yeah. And like, oh my God, here you go. Let me put this in. And like, there it was. And
do you know where this was released though online?
I do. I looked it up earlier, but where was it released?
On BowieNet.
The BowieNet.
David Bowie's dial-up ISP that he started in 1996.
Well, wow. I feel like
I didn't know that till today.
let me dial into my my BowieNet account and like
you could get an @davidbowie.net email address and 5 megabytes of web space, of which they would host on davidbowie.net.
Oh, I want to host something. I wish I could go back and have a spinning GIF on BowieNet.
All programmed with real audio.
Oh yeah.
The fidelity.
Buzz. Yeah. So like other than that, aside from the trip down, like, ooh, this is a weird thing. This is a very guitar-focused album, but in a weird way, the guitar is like, the guitar is there to set the mood. It's not there to like it. So there's a lot of modulation. There are a lot of there's a lot of wah and other kinds of like effects that are made to set a mood. You know, that and the general MIDI sounds of 1999. But like the guitar is like mixed so far back, which I'll get into the mix later, because this is not mixed like any album that I've listened to ever, I think. But like, I don't want to give, you know, the guitar is there, but I don't want to give short shrift to our friend. Record Breakers loves him. He's the fretless bass guitar. The fretless bass guitar going all over the place on here. It's like is pretty great. The vocals from David Bowie on this album almost sound like somebody is holding a gun to the back of his head. Almost there's an unease in this album vocally that kind of fits. There's like there are a few times where I'm like, okay, we'll keep this take, you know. So that works, I guess. Yeah, it's definitely an artistic choice a lot of times with the vocals, with everything. But man, when we get into songs, like the mix is really the thing that they don't make it like this anymore. Man, yeah, and I'm really like I'm interested to see what Drew has to say about some of this, because like we are both connoisseurs of the weird.
Yeah. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, before I describe it musically, for the audio listeners, I would like to have you look up the album cover for this album, because it is the most Savage Garden ass album cover that wasn't Savage Garden.
It is.
Ever.
It is your '90s yearbook cover. Is
Yep. Okay.
They've got like how to break DRM on DVD at the top.
Yeah.
David Bowie is an icon in the in a lot of different milieus, but the LGBT scene loves him, and let's say the Savage Garden ass look to this album cover kind of points out part of this.
It's actually a little bit more Hanson. If you're like, correction, I see Hanson there with the text exploded out and like the or am I totally like misremembering? Am I having my Berenstain Bears moment with the Hanson album cover?
I was right. The Hanson album cover, because I was like, I don't remember.
Oh no, they're the
album cover.
They're the cross process.
Orange with just the three of them, and then the name in block letters.
I stand corrected.
Like, I'm just thinking of like how he's holding Reeves. I think it's Reeves is his name.
The Cloud Sky Blue. Yeah.
Anyways, and musically, the thing about Bowie,
it's himself. It's younger himself.
Is it?
It's two Bowies on the cover.
Bowie's, isn't it?
Bowie holding Bowie, baby.
It's David Bowie and Dave.
But the thing about Bowie is like you have those weird eras. Like we touched on a little bit of like he was in like a weird experimental like electronica phase coming out of the 80s, and then like just did acting and didn't do any recording for like 3 years, and then like all of a sudden this was the album that comes out. So that was fucking weird.
He was afraid of Americans for a minute.
Yeah. And then before that was the Ziggy Stardust phase, the glam rock phase, right? So
there was the white, there was the cocaine phase.
There was Ashes to Ashes in there somewhere.
New Romantic.
This was his 22nd album.
Yeah.
Man,
there was the children's album.
Right? Like, it's nuts! Like, and this sort of comes out, and you could have that, like, weird experimentation. It wasn't, obviously. It works within, like, relatively normal sensibilities. Mind you, I'm saying that under the guise of, this is relatively normal sensibilities for Bowie. The man, like, the whole record is, like, has this haunting, forlorn feel to the vocals, which, having not played Omicron, I can't tell you if that's part of what he did because of what the game was, or part of the fact that, like, a lot of these songs deal with death in a lot of weird ways. But Brett's not wrong. Usually you think guitar record and you think like a lot of meedly mees and a lot of doodly doos. No, like the guitar in this is so important for a mood and sort of that milieu that you get from this entire thing. Like the entire tone is set with the guitar. Like, and it feels like Bowie is following that more than anything. And that's the craziest part of this. And I think it's super, super cool. It made me want to go see what this game is, but it's also a David Cage game. So, like, if he peaked, like, 10 years later with Indigo Prophecy and then, like, Heavy Rain, and, like, Heavy Rain was not great to play, and he was heavy-handed in his thoughts on this, if...
You were David Bowie the whole time.
I don't know if I could.
It's a metaphor for being a 60s and 70s rocker in the 90s.
Like, I want to see what it is, but at the same time, I don't want to play it. And I doubt there's a good, like, long play of this by
9% of people chose what you did.
Yeah, the technology wasn't there for that yet, but yeah, close enough.
Oh, man.
David Bowie's in it.
Yeah, I want to see that. Like, I want to see, like...
He's voice acting in it.
But I don't want to play it.
And his mocap for 1999.
There's this thing called YouTube, my dude.
Yeah, but, like...
You can play as his wife, Eamon. Because she's in it. I'm not going to spoil anything more for you, but enjoy that.
There's something about, like... fucking... Who's the like analog for like The Prejudice? Is it like a robot? Is it like what the fuck? Detroit Become Human pissed me off.
I mean, Detroit Become Human is a very special thing. You absorb that. It's special.
God, it had a thing to say and it beat you over the head. Nuance is important when you're doing allegories. But this album is the important part. Let's not yell about David Cage being bad at things.
You do you, buddy.
Okay, we can yell about David Cage being bad at things. I can be on that TED Talk. I was real excited about Heavy Rain. It looked really cool. And then that game, like, halfway through was fucking stupid.
Why wasn't there a sequel to Detroit Become Human called Windsor Become Canadian? Like, the river's not that big. Just go.
Wait. That's implying that Canadians aren't human to begin with.
No, you become Canadian
in that game.
You go over there and you have your Tim Hortons, and you're like, the grass is literally greener on this side of the river. That's fucked up.
What happens.
But musically, this album was actually like kind of cool. And it was very like it's David Bowie. Like, the man knows how to make a goddamn record. He's done it.
Yeah.
Tons.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So like there's weird mixing in this, but like it kind of added to some of the unease for me when it brought out certain tones and stuff like that. So like, I don't know. I thought it was very smartly done, but very not what you expect out of Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I've listened to this a few times in the car, a few times a couple times here sitting down with my headphones, and I feel like I'm at this album music. I really focus on this album music actually. It's like has been said. It does have a weirdness. It is pulling from contemporaries of the time. Musically, there's some late 90s crunchy guitar. There's some like MIDI. There's some there's like, I think somebody called them in one of the reviews kind of like what was it, like a high end or a slightly snootier Sting or something in terms of reception.
Yeah.
It's like a more highbrow version of Sting from John Mullen to select.
More highbrow than Sting.
Yes. I don't know. That's the quote. A quote more highbrow, end quote.
Well, I have some Sting related quotes to give here in a minute. So,
and it is, like I said, it's David Bowie sounds at odds and sounds almost like out of sorts, and it kind of like it goes for a stylistic choice on that regard. There is efforts of atmosphere. It's very like adult contemporary late 90s, like, and it's like and it does those things pretty well for what they were attempting. But
what, you mean like Seal?
Yeah. It does feel a little bit droning sometimes, like kind of drones on at times for definitely some moments, and feels a little lost. But and again, that's a stylistic choice. It kind of like an unease and a little bit of a being in lost. It's part of the music. I don't know if it works for me. I'll talk more about that in the conclusion, but that's kind of what I gathered from it. Just kind of like experimenting with things from the time and bringing himself and his more core sound into 1999, like in a sense. But let's talk about key tracks. Curly, what would be some of the key tracks to zero in on?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the reviews in regards to this album has some great tracks and has some lower ones. That some of the droning that you guys mentioned is for me I remembering it as like pulling you along with it, and I kind of like that, and I don't think I disliked it when listening to it as I'm older. Some of the songs like Something in the Air they're slow throughout and they kind of build to attention with Bowie's voice. I'm a big fan of David Bowie, even when he does his spoken word version of singing, which he does a lot of in this. And there's an uneasiness to it, and I do think it's purposeful. Obviously, I don't think he can't sing. I think he chooses it here, as you said. It's a stylistic choice. So for me, the big main tracks are Something in the Air, Thursday's Child. I dug those. They're great openers to the song, the feel for what you're going to get from this. I think 7 was one of my favorites, and only because it's guitar and it's Bowie, and it's got a nice groove that you can go along with. Pretty Things Are Going to Hell. I liked as a kid. It's where he kind of amps it up a little bit and actually kind of gets some energy in it. And then New Angels of Promise is just the opening to the video game, so I've always enjoyed that one thoroughly because we used to just leave that title on the old Dreamcast in the living room and let it play. Some of the other ones I used to like I used to just I remember turning it off for the Dreamers, even though I don't think it's a bad song. Like once you hit like the 9 and 10, like Brilliant Adventure and Dreamers, I just remember being like, "Yep, the album was over now. It's just gonna peter itself out for a bit." But I appreciate it more as an adult, as a connoisseur of Bowie. But those are mine.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
So, the reason everybody talks about Sting is because of Thursday's Child. Because if I ever lose my faith, it's got some very much like this is music from 7 years ago by Sting feels, but kinda. The MIDI pan flute and the Super Nintendo synth pad was like, oh, it made me feel so good. I enjoyed that so much. But like the vocals and the way the vocals were mixed, so weird. Like they're so forward, like they're so in the front of the mix while everything else is in the back. And that even includes the whisper backing vocals, which I did read on Wikipedia that Bowie wanted to have TLC to sing the background vocals on this song, and he was talked out of it. Something in the Air. There's Wicca Chicka Wah. But there's also James Bond strings in the background. But this is the one and only time we've ever heard this vocal effect on Record Breakers. I don't know what it was, but it was pretty amazing.
That's also with no effect. That's just Bowie's voice. He can do that.
It kind of sounded like somebody had like a tape of something and was like using like because this was the 90s. They were still there were all kinds of dumb things you could do, like but the guitar on Something in the Air was very Brian May Queen-ish in the big bends, but it was tucked away really far. But there was an effect in it that in my memory, and I didn't go and I was busy doing other investigations today, but I'm pretty sure was almost exactly the sound of Crankor getting shot by Prince of Space. The true weirdos out there will know.
I think I've seen that on Mystery Science Theater.
Yes, that's the only way that anybody will have known Crankor. Yes, it's like the. It's a very.
I like Luke lacking very much.
Crankor needs to be a guest on this show. We need to. That's what we need. 7. There's a slide guitar under a synth. They were doing the Killers 5 years before the Killers.
It sneaks in on you. Some of the instrumentation just sneaks in the middle of some of the tracks you don't expect. And you're like, "Whoa, hello, what's this? What's going on?"
And there are also stereo effects, because I had a 12-string guitar going over here in one ear and a different 12-string guitar over here, and then all of a sudden I'd hear the same noise that happens when you hit the power button on a PS2. It was I enjoyed that so much. If I'm dreaming my life, the phaser's gonna phase. There's a guitar effect that is called the phaser, which was designed because somebody wanted to make the noise that you hear on AM radio, the sweeping. And Eddie Van Halen made a bunch of money doing stuff with one of those. But I was really into how much how much effects were somebody with all of the pedals was guitaring on this album. But when it started to pick up at the end and oh my God, I just want to tip my hat to the guy whose job it was to hit the one keyboard key over and over, and it was moved to the front of the mix man. And finally, all the pretty things are going to hell. There was some very owl-esque hooing going on, and I thought that was funny. I enjoyed that.
Yes.
In an album where there's a lot of like, one night in Bangkok levels of singing. It was kind of nice to have some going on in there. I enjoyed that a bunch.
Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
So for me, Thursday's Child, a light bass groove is great. It makes the beginning of this feel special. But it's Bowie. Like, Bowie knows what he's doing, I think, on the layout. And he knows what he's doing in the studio. 7. Sometimes you don't need a lot in a song to make an impression with me. 7 is that song. Like, it's simple. There's not much to it. If you're watching the video version at home, when Mr. Curley went on his end of the album talk, I gave a little bit of a shocked Pikachu face, because the Dreamers, just a jubilant chorus with a staccato verse. It is a song that, like, there's an old saying, you want to send them home happy, and this song sent me home happy. The baby face went over, everything was cool. Like, the song was like I kind of like, oh, this is like, this made me happy, like, more of this, and I would be super pumped about it. Like, I don't know why that song made me so happy, but it just did.
Thursday's Child was a nice pop ballad, and it works well, and it starts off the album really nicely. It's one of the bright spots, I would say, for me. The Pretty Things Are Going to Hell, going in kind of the heavier song. It was fun, and like it's with this late 90s, like I said, late 90s crunchy guitar, and just like kind of thing going on, and it does a lot of fun things. And I would say there was some cool things going on in Survive. Sonically, that one was interesting. I think those were a couple of bright spots for me. And I will talk about more of how it left me when we bring it back around the horn. But let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. Brett, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
I mean, I look forward to telling somebody, hey, this is the only David Bowie album I've listened to front to back, and see what their response is. That I look forward to.
Never heard of this, sir. Never.
I mean, I enjoy weird things. Like, I'm a proponent of, hey, it's music, but the worst thing you can do is like waste a little bit of my time and give me something to talk about. Like, so this was way better than like it's something I didn't enjoy. There was novelty here for me to respect and enjoy. Probably not going on my regular playlist, but I am better for having listened to it. So while I think that this is some very of its time stuff, and a very weird period for music in general, but David Bowie specifically, like I think it's somewhere between eating your vegetables and like not, I guess. I got something from this.
Drew, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
That's actually not a bad way to think about it, I don't think. It's an album that I liked had fun with. I don't understand because I read on the Wikipedia that this was actually kind of panned and considered like sort of on a lower end of his records.
You don't say?
And I can understand that, but like, if this is on the low of his records, like, think about how great everything he's put out is. Because, like, this is still a really good fucking album. Like, it's very well done. Like, and I think of the worst albums as, like, it's a weird thing that just popped in my head. But the worst album from a band I can think of is, like, Korn's dubstep album.
Okay.
Which is a place. So if this is David Bowie's like a worst album, like people need to like count their blessings.
But you haven't heard David Bowie's dubstep album.
But also, you got to remember this was 1999, people, and I mean, you're a 2022 person.
Yeah, but like it's something where like people rank this now as like sort of on the low end. Right?
Well, people are dumb.
That's something
we're telling them they're wrong.
Good. Yeah, I agree with that. They are
fuck
wrong.
You, people.
Fucking people. People are assholes.
But we're correct assholes.
Our opinions matter most.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a podcast, so apparently, of course, they are. How it works.
I'm at a crossroads. I was unsure if I was starting to enjoy this, and then I was
ringing endorsement. Put it on the album cover.
Unsure about starting to enjoy this. Okay.
Because it was like I was putting it on, listening to it, in the car, and I was like, "Is this bringing me in here? Is this bringing me somewhere? Is this?
Am I having fun?
Am I having fun?" And I feel like if I gave it more listens, it would. And I've listened to it quite a few times, but it almost feels like I need to either give it more listens to actually start enjoying it, or it might just lose me entirely. Which is, I would say, not a great place for an album for me, because either way, either I'm just Stockholm syndroming myself into liking something, or it's just I could be spending my time on something else.
This is the point when Curly should tell you that there's an entire screenplay that you can read that's all about this album.
It's the video game.
Yeah. But you need the ARG to really sink your teeth into this album.
The ARG is my life. God.
I think it's an album that has bright spots and has some like interesting moments. It didn't hook me really that well, and knowing better Bowie, at least in general, as far as like at least tracks, and it is a high bar, and it's unfair. It is relative to the great stuff that Bowie has put out. It is on that spectrum. It is on, I think, in that a lower end, because it's not as timeless as some of the other stuff that he's put out. Obviously, he has put out a bunch of stuff that is very of its time, very hokey, but it is. It feels like the I get the theme of him being lost and being like a little bit out of sorts, and the midlife crisis is part of it stylistically, but it kind of just lost me in that respect, and I think it's fine. I think if there's I think people should check it out. People like there's things to pick out and things sonically to kind of lock into that kind of like come out of nowhere and are a little unconventional. It just, for me, it didn't.
Say it, Petey. You didn't like it.
It's okay, bud.
Stand on your soapbox.
I
wasn't
dead. He can't.
I didn't enjoy this.
I didn't enjoy it all that well. So this one might not have been for me. I think I'm more of a there are other Bowies that I'm gonna be more into, older and newer. Like there's better Bowies in the past and there's better Bowies in the future from this. Like the album Curly brought last time, Black Star, that has been discussed.
Did I bring Black Star? Okay.
Yeah.
May have been drinking.
We've been doing this a long time. So.
Yes.
We did Mother Falcon, a couple albums, and then this.
Yes. 1, 2, skip a few, 3, 68. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Curly, bring it back to the positive.
I am opposite Petey. But I also am very aware that I have a big nostalgia boner for a lot of this, just based on
service.
Yeah, I mean, based on my time period of discovering it, what I was doing at the time, how I discovered it, my love of Bowie in general. The more I wish, I mean, I'm aware of it. I wish I could tell you that it stands alone on itself, but I cannot personally dissect the two apart, the video game and the lore behind it, and literally almost every song. I think like 80% of the songs in this 10 album track, so 8 of them, I think are actually performed in game as a band in polygon format with Bowie singing. I see those scenes still when I listen to these tracks. They make me happy. It filled me with joy. So I enjoy it. I remember every human in my entire life. There's only been 2 that I randomly discovered as they put this album on, or a track from this album on, and I was like, holy shit. And they're like, yeah, this is a great Bowie album. You probably never heard of it. And I was like, bitch, please, let's go.
Well, actually,
yeah, let me put my Jareth nerd glasses on. So yeah, I love it. It's short. I think it's like 50 minutes tops. I've listened to it countless times, and every time I do, it's usually a background thing because it just kind of it's just a great little album. It gets you from a quick drive, or if you're cooking dinner. And I always enjoy just going through it and just putting on play from start to finish, and then it ends, and I have good times. So I suggest everyone do it. I know it's not the best Bowie album, but it tells one of the small pieces of the giant puzzle that is Bowie's entire life and discography, and I think it's worth it to listen to at least once.
I will say, going back to the joke earlier, I was looking up Omicron the Nomad Soul on Steam. And I was looking at the reviews. Within 2 reviews of each other, there was one review that said, "So good they named a strain of COVID-19 after it." 2 reviews down, it says, "So bad they named a strain of COVID-19 after it."
Hey, you know what? Some asshole like me would go in there and make that second comment.
Listen, as soon as the news said Omicron, I was like, what, the video game's back? And then I went, oh my God, I'm old. And then I don't know, I read that they put they put it on sale or something.
It's on Steam for $10.
Yeah, I doubt it'll run, even if it's on Steam. This is 99 you're talking about.
Yes. We'll see.
Build mode.
Get the Dreamcast emulator, it's better on there anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on David Bowie's Hours. Now we get to the main event of the evening, the moment you've all been waiting for, the Haiku Reviews. We sum it all up in poetic form, hit you with the 575. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. Brett, what is your haiku?
Bowie made his art, and I respect his choices. I embrace the weird.
Drew, what is your haiku?
You muted, Drew. 0, 0, 0, the haiku.
Bowie always hits, and this one made me want to play video games.
My haiku. A legend listless, bright spots but mostly falls flat. He's done much greater. Last but not least, Curly, what is your haiku?
90s game soundtrack. The Bowie you never heard. Thank you, Nomad Soul.
Yes. Yeah, those are our thoughts on David Bowie's Hours. You can, of course, find it on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. There's 2 playlists. Follow along at home. One with the episode slotted in, one without. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record. Still working on guests because I procrastinate. But I can tell you at least the album. It's gonna be my pick of an album. We're gonna do some modern Afro-Cuban funk. Just Afro-Cuban funk in the form of Sima Funk. And his album El Alimento. So look forward to that. We're getting Cuban up in here. But look forward to that. But that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Find us all over the internet. Brett is at HibbityBibberd, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at XDrewCipherX. Curly is at Drunk Kids Gaming and or Curly. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebelly TV on YouTube and on Twitch. We do live stream on Twitch. We do this show. We do our D&D show when we can. The schedules allow. We're gonna get back on
when jazz doesn't get in the way.
Exactly. Yeah, check out all those things, including all of our other streams, including the Witcher streams with me and Daisy. Pretty soon I'm gonna get back into Mass Effect streams. I'm gonna start Mass Effect 3 pretty soon, so check out
Who's
that.
Gerald gonna romance?
We'll look forward to that. He's already romanced a couple people. Gerald has already romanced a couple of ladies. Since you can see it, there were titties. Check out all those things. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Bye.
Annyeong. Fighting.
It was all a dream. A quantic dream.
Oh.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.